how to reduce cost of customer engagement. The session is going to be chaired by John Greenwood, our very own John Greenwood. We've got some really good panelists. He'll be introducing them shortly. Through the session, we're going to fire off a few polls. So if you could give us your feedback on your thoughts, that would be really appreciated. We'll share that information as we go through. You can ask questions as well. We really would like you to ask questions throughout the session. Please do that. We'll endeavour to answer them. If we don't manage to do it within the session, we'll come back to you afterwards and with an answer to your question. We're going to be recording this session, so it'll be made available after the webinar's finished. I'm going to pass over to John now. So John is going to introduce the panel and kick things off.
Great, thank you, Jonathan. And without further ado, our panel is made up through Natalie Calvert. Natalie helps businesses with putting customers at the heart of the organization. So you'll find Natalie very much on the client side, really championing not just customer engagement, but also the CX angle, which of course we're all familiar with as outsourcers. Natalie's worked with and empowered and equipped more than 200,000 agents and 100 plus clients over 25 years. And over the last 10 years, Natalie's been judging at the UK Lloyds Bank Business Awards for Virgin Atlantic Customer Experience and Loyalty Award, but also has been a board advisor to the National Business Awards. Welcome, Natalie.
Thank you, John.
And from the tech side, two of our panel members, Nathan Smith is founder and MD of Gabba. They're an award-winning and pioneering digital chatbot marketing business, working with large global brands, including Microsoft and Siemens, and is author of a book on social media for the legal sector, and is passionate about sharing knowledge and sharing his knowledge and empowering other organizations.
Nice to meet
Welcome,
you all.
Nathan.
Thank you.
And finally, but not least, Chris. Chris is responsible for business development and marketing at DigitalGenius. They're an AI platform, super well established, one of the first in the space. And they've got basically a platform that is powered by deep learning that understands customers' objectives, drives automated resolutions through APIs, and can connect seamlessly with back-end systems. So welcome, Chris.
Thank you, John.
Great. Now, I think just to put this in positioning, we want to tailor this content specifically for you as an outsourcing audience. So we're very mindful of your margin challenges, very mindful of revenue, but also cost. So we do try to approach in those contexts. And I think a bit of positioning. First of all, organizations are going through massive change, and distribution models for goods and services are changing. We're seeing more from the high street to the internet, and we're seeing more engagement between the e-commerce channel and the Moto channel. In other words, the website and the call center, greater interaction between them. But we're also seeing product and service and that whole customer service beat, remote customer management being a key part of customer engagement and a key part of differentiation, of competitive advantage. And we've known that for clients ages ago. That's been part of our sell as outsourcers. But cost is a factor. Cost is a big factor. And I guess the initial sort of question, this framing question, as organizations bounce back from COVID, what's the role of the conversational bot or the virtual assistant? And, we'll see, will we see this technology replace IVR as we transition from voice to non-voice customer communication channels? And I think probably I'd like to kick off the session, Natalie, with a response to that question. Are we going to see this technology take the role that we've seen IVR in the past?
I think, hi, thank you, John. And hello, I can see in the audience, there are quite a few people that I know, so welcome to you as well. And my disclaimer as well is right up front. I started off, wasn't quite at the beginning, but quite a lot of the beginning of my career working for a major outsourcer, both on the client services side, but also was responsible as ops director for the operations as well for voice and for data activity. Okay, so that's the disclaimer. Now I'll move forward. Your question, will IVR replace? I'm kind of going to broaden that a bit, because what occurs to me is that, is the bot going to replace the outsourcer? Is that fundamentally what we're looking at? If we're looking at a global shared services, a global BPO operations, that where in-house complex stuff stays in-house, the transactional stuff has been outsourced over the years, does it mean that this is actually the cusp of the tipping point for the outsourcer, which says, if you don't get your act together really fast, and I know some of you are already on that journey anyway of changing, then actually potentially the bot takes over the outsourcer overall. So what have outsourcers got to do? Well, in my view, there are four things. First of all, we've talked about it for years, haven't we? But it's value. You've got to find the value for the client. It's no longer just about the cost, because the cost they can remove. It's about you delivering extra value in every conversation. Secondly, it's the era of collaboration. It's the era of great minds coming together. And it's no longer outsourcer versus the client. It's about everyone getting around the table with the IT, the experts, the outsourcer, and the client coming together to say, let's create a new world, a new solution. Thirdly, I would say to the outsourcers, the game has changed. The game has changed for a number of reasons. One is COVID, where the model's flipped on its head. Two is hybrid working, that's changed us as well. But the bot, don't underestimate the value of a bot going on here. So what's number one in that game changer is redevelop your expertise. Your business has just changed. And the expertise that you need to develop now is very different going forward from what it's been. That might be contentious, and you've got to have all the client look after pieces that you do brilliantly. But at the core of it, the expertise of what you're actually offering has shifted. And therefore, and I'm bound to say that, and some of you might have a wry smile on this, but you have to reskill your people. That's from your leadership team down, to understand the future world that we are now operating in now. So I think it's bigger than just IVR, John, to answer your question. I think this is a real transitional time for outsourcers.
Well, let's pick up on that, right? Because if that does put fear of God into our outsource community, right? Isn't there an opportunity to embrace this technology? Because I know from a distribution standpoint, the tech vendors actually are looking to the outsourcing sector as a distribution channel to embrace the technology, to work alongside it. Chris, you've been operating with a number of outsourcers and have taken this approach already.
And I think there's some outsourcers which will win and there are some who will lose. Fundamentally, over the last 15 months, what we know for certain is volume into the contact center has increased, and for a lot of brands quite dramatically. Alongside that, lots of new companies have popped up that are growing really fast. So there's definitely a huge opportunity there. And I think that in the very short term, I'm sure over the last 15 months, many outsourcers' revenue and margins has increased because companies have had to bring in a lot of kind of temporary short-term fixes. And actually, I think the ones that will win, again, just as you said, John, were the ones that will get ahead with technology. One of the interesting points probably when it comes to automation is, technology, as you might skill up your people to deal with one brand. When it comes to technology, actually, this is sitting in the technology vendor space. Actually, it's easier to skill up your bot to work across multiple companies and customers. So for the ones that win, they'll have that, they'll know the bot which can really fit their customers' need, and they'll introduce that, and they'll be the ones who are the trusted advisor. And that's how they'll keep their customers, and kind of their model will evolve over the next few years, but they definitely will stay in the game, and they'll probably be very successful.
Nathan, what's your take on that?
Well, I think we're in a real period of flux. I think it's very difficult to be an expert in this space because it's moving so fast, for sure. We know that if you're under 35, the primary channel communication is chat. Yeah. In the next 3 to 5 years, it's estimated, regardless of age, demographic, location, whether it's Brazil to Burnley, chat is going to be the primary focus. I had a little bit of involvement with The Guardian. Remember when they said digital first years ago? It's going to be companies need to have a chat strategy, a CCOM strategy. And so to sort of like draw on, I remember Deloitte bringing out their huge future of work report a couple of years back. Where are these 20 or 30% of the workforce? What are they going to do? They're going to, what jobs are they going to be doing? We're seeing that now. It's really starting to happen, that there's great automation being is affecting that swathe of commerce. Only 6 weeks ago, Instagram allowed chatbots to be allowed on the platform. And to give you some idea how big that is, Facebook's results from a couple of weeks back, Instagram represents about 37-38% of their overall revenue worldwide. It's going to be the primary channel in the next 18 months. So it's changing fast.
I want to come back. I want to come back to that. But Nathan, do you think that the outsourcers can be part of your distribution channel, your service distribution channel? Is there a place for them to actually gain more margin by working collaboratively with the tech vendor community to actually deliver a better service to their clients? More collated, more collaborative service, to Natalie's point.
Yeah, for sure. But reinforcing Natalie's point, I think it goes across the board. I think if you look around at any part of your business, if it can be automated, it will be automated. And I think, whether that's customer facing or internally, it makes no sense for somebody to be working in a company asking for somebody for a holiday form or how many holidays I've got left. And equally, it makes no sense to employ people to do what a bot can do better, which is essentially get answers much faster to people.
Yeah. So we're looking at two use cases there. First of all, in the customer engagement and managing those customer engagement flows, but also as a knowledge source, as a supporting internal processes.
Yeah. We're working, sorry.
No, go for it.
I was saying, I've got a lot of involvement in the legal sector, a lot of involvement in the recruitment sector with companies that are international, and I've seen just how poorly those intranet sites are. If you work in an office and you're trying to ask who does this in Hong Kong, or where, right down to where are the paper clips, you're not going to get an answer off an intranet site by and large. Bots do this stuff very, very well at significantly cheaper costs. So companies that are going to be, quick to start are going to work out those huge efficiencies internally, not least externally with customers as well.
Chris, internal, external?
I think it depends a little bit on the industry and what a business is trying to do. And actually, it's quite interesting, on this poll that you've just flagged up, how much do you think of a conversational bot could reduce your content? And I guess the majority is between 10 and 33%. And that's really what we see at DigitalGenius. You'll see some companies throw out stats which say you can suddenly deflect 80-90% of your incoming. That's not really realistic. What we find at DigitalGenius is during peaks, we work a lot in the e-commerce and retail space. And we see during peaks, it might be that you can automate, 2/3. It's probably what we're doing for some of our customers like Quicksilver on running that you would know, where everyone is asking about where's my order? Can I get a return? Can I get a refund? But then when it comes to kind of more business normal, I'd say it's around about 1/3 is probably a good estimation across a very large customer base. There's some doing a lot more. So again, back to your point, there is some that needs to be covered by automation. We think of automation rather than bots, because I think sometimes people think that actually email is another channel, a channel which has increased a lot over the last 15 months. Well, actually, you can automate emails just as much as you can automate chat conversations. But if you can automate maybe 1/3 of your, or maybe a half, there's still plenty of volume left. And those are the interactions which really make a difference. So if a business has time to manage them really well, buy an outsourcer. they're the ones that are going to stay ahead of the game.
Interesting. We've got a question from the audience that I want to come to now, and it says, how do you ensure seamless customer conversation using latest tech like NLP, AI, across all channels, including OTT channels? Right. So this is, how do you combine it? Is it really a combination thing, or is it an upfront and passover thing? Natalie, just from the customer's point of view first, how would the customer view this?
So I think when it comes to the customer point of view, it depends on the demographic of the customer. So we're looking at all the different age groups here. So if you go to Nathan's point earlier on, if you're looking at somebody under 35, in some ways that's a lot easier to service through a single automated channel rather than bringing the two together. But I think from a customer experience point of view, what's really important is that we design this with the customer in mind. And we actually, it's that classic phrase, we do it outside in rather than inside out. Yeah. And therefore you've got to be able to understand what your customer segments are doing, how they're responding, and what is it that you're going to do that drives behavior that will either eliminate the need for service or drive sales, one or the other. And if you can do that and understand it, then you can deploy a whole variety of different tech around that.
So just picking up on that point, what's the potential of this technology to reduce cost per serve? Because we all know when it comes down to the line, clients always point the finger at us as outsourcers and say, where are you bringing innovation? Where are you helping me reduce my costs? Yep. So what is the potential to serve? Chris, you've had a number of historic deployments over the years and have evolved them. How's the evolution journey developed in your use cases to try and reduce cost per serve?
Well, I think, ultimately it starts with the really simple things. And to go back to Natalie's point, yes, in an ideal world, you would reduce the need for kind of customer service altogether, because you're in the e-commerce world again, as you're going through the buying journey and you've ordered something and you're returning something, ideally you wouldn't need to ever reach out to customer service. But I think it's just not realistic, especially in all the world we're hearing with supply chain disruptions. It's impossible for brands to predict what is going to happen. So therefore you have to be well prepared. But ultimately, I think for sometimes a lot of businesses and a lot of technologies in this space kind of overcook the wheel a little bit when it comes to the customer experience, where ultimately today, most brands are dealing with a high volume of very repetitive questions about the same thing. Again, where's my order? Can I get a return? Ultimately, as a consumer, what do you need? You just want something solved. That's really all that matters. When it comes to more human-like experiences through a robot, yes, some brands do that really well. Most don't do it at all. And the ones that are trying to do it get it really wrong. So for now, there are plenty of easy things to solve first, whereas maybe where some of the nuances of the technology will become more important when you're having more human-like conversations. But I think that's probably a little bit more for the future. Maybe it's been a little bit more dictated by the last 15 months because of everything that's gone on in the world as well.
Chris, easy things to solve first?
Well, things like for a retailer would be, where's my order? Can I get a refund? For a banking customer, it might. And actually, I think some banks are really good at it because there's not that many. So therefore, they have more money and time to invest into getting a really good chatbot. But what's my balance? Can I withdraw this? Can I do this? The repetitive, simple things which can be solved without a human.
Yeah, Nathan, your take on that?
Yeah, I agree with everything that Chris has said there. I think on the e-commerce side, the shopping side, just getting some basic things right. Just abandoned cart, being able to recover that from, through automation and chat. We're seeing, when we're seeing clients just using email, we're seeing open rates of somewhere about 10 or 15%. When we're adding email and chat into the mix, when we say chat across things like Messenger, WhatsApp, now Instagram, web, we're seeing open rates of about 75-80%. But on the more customer service side for bots, there's a little bit of an elephant in the room. When a bot goes live, that's on day one. They need, although there's been a lot of effort and time and testing put into the design, they get cleverer. And brands and organizations that are grasping this are investing in that technology. Really what you want is the cleverest guy in the room, or cleverest person in the room, to be that bot in 2 years' time, the person that will know where the paper clips are, who works in Hong Kong, and where is your order. The bot is learning each and every day. We've got a client at the moment, we're just about to launch a bot, and they're saying to us, we can't get, it answers everything. I privately know that when it goes live, it's going to, and it's released to the public are going to ask it stuff it just doesn't know. Yeah, we have great default responses and ways to deal with that, but it's going to learn and get very smart very fast. You're investing in that technology.
I'm interested.
I think going back to John's point, though, the question earlier on around the cost side of it, if you say that up to, looking at various reports and client studies, up to 50% of the routine transactions are going to go. And that seems very reasonable, I think, because a lot of it is repetitive stuff that can be taken out. So that's in terms of the volume, but that doesn't necessarily always translate into cost. So therefore, roughly speaking, you're going to have, as the client side is going to look to take between 15 and 20% of the cost out of running that operation, whoever's running it for them, whether that's in-house or outsourced. So we're going to see a big shift, because that potentially is the margin going, unless you can find the really, not only just the basic applications for it, but you've got to find, as an outsourcer, some real niches that you can operate in that really differentiate you from your competitor. I think those USPs, as we would say, have really got to come to the frame where we will, I think, see more kind of boutique type operations that are offering specialist services. Now, whether that's a small operation or a big one, but real specialist services that make it different going forward.
When it comes down to it, is this a question, really? I'm going to point to Natalie to answer this one first, but is this agent augmentation or agent replacement, or both? Because, you know, our businesses are our agents, right? As the point you've just made.
I don't think our businesses are our agents anymore. I think that world has changed. And I think that's part of COVID's digital transformation. So, you know, in COVID, we've turned that pyramid on its head. We've gone from higher volume voice, email, chat into larger volume at the top end, chat, then email, then voice. So I think our businesses have lots of agents in them, or advisors, as I actually don't like the term agent at all. I think it just sounds like I'm a piece of tech in the first place. So we've got lots of advisors, but actually our business has got to be about value, and that's a value around customer interaction. And what's the value of that interaction to the client? And therefore, where are you going to cleverly place the human to add extra value? And if you take the cost I mentioned earlier, your human element has got to add at least 10 times the value of that bot. And so that really starts to focus the mind. Where's the human going to be placed? And therefore, when the bot's placed, how's that going to work? So I don't think it's either or. I think the model has changed. We're at that tipping point.
Chris, augmentation or replacement?
I think, again, just to add one more bit, is as consumers today, and we see it with our customers, most people are doing customer service very badly. So for the businesses that are simply just able to get back to their customers really fast with an accurate and consistent response, they probably will really give them a competitive advantage. It's not an easy field to really shine. I think there's a role of both. You know, agents want bots to help them in the same way customers want bots to help them. So I think it's really, from a business's point of view, understanding which use cases can be automated and which ones might not be able to be automated. But ultimately, if you can augment the advisor, it's going to make the whole experience better. And ultimately, I think it's about choosing the right partner to enable you to kind of go on that journey.
Chris, I've got to come back in there. Sorry. I don't think we are doing badly as a sector. If you look at even the Institute of Customer Service stats, our stats come in at around about 80% customer satisfaction across the board. It wavers a bit down at times because of different circumstances. I actually think our sector has been the hidden heroes of the whole pandemic. You know,
I might be biased.
I really take back and I take umbrage to what you're saying.
Yeah.
We've got 15 million people employed in customer service across the world. Just as a people, we'll, give me 100 positives or 99 positives and 1 negative. I'll always focus on the negative.
Yeah.
It's just not true.
I think I might be a bit biased, to be honest, in we've been very much exposed to the retail and e-commerce space, which is
You're a demanding customer. I'll take it back.
Forefront. And I'd go back again. I don't have figures on the top of my head now. I just from our customers to say, how often have you reached out to, you bought something online, you've reached out to customer service, normally sent an email, because email is still number one channel, I think, in the retail and e-commerce space. And you've got a reply back saying you'll get a response back in 2 to 3 days.
Yeah, but out of every 100 customer interactions, if only 3% have to go to customer service, it means we've got the 97% of customer service spot on. And that's the bit that always gets ignored. Anyway, I won't get stuck on it.
Let's
I
come
would
back.
easily discuss it for a long time. Sorry, John.
Your passion is overwhelming, Natalie. I'm going to share a couple of quick stats, right? This is from I'm going to go with a psfk1.com. They're saying up to 74% of customers prefer to use chatbots to help them find answers to simple questions, right? So that's the first one. Just hold on to that. And the second one is from Gartner, from their Chatbot Initiatives and Enterprise Strategy paper in 2020. And they're saying by 2025, 80% of large organizations will need to have a conversational, technology-focused center of excellence or skills resource, right? So we've got a customer side and we've got a tech side. Going back to, just hold on to those two facts and go back to what we've learned through IVR over the last 20, 30 years, recognizing that more of this is going to happen. What are the lessons that we should learn from dealing with IVR for 20, 30 years that we can bring into this new space, this new technology space? Natalie, kick us off with that one.
Well, if you look, I mean, Chris, I'm now going to shoot my own foot off here, right? Okay, so hands up. IVR generally hasn't been particularly well received by the consumer, and that's because we managed to layer it upon layer. And so therefore, so what are the key lessons around IVR? Well, number one, we got a lot of the KPIs, the measures wrong, and how we started to use them. Number two, we used it as a way to deflect calls rather than to embrace them. And number three, I think generally the whole structure and scripting of IVR was, I think, left to hands that weren't experts in doing that. So it was some facilities manager, she said very crudely, that came along and set up an IVR, and that's not really potentially customer centric. So I think there are lessons to be learned, but are we going to learn them? Can I just very briefly I don't know if everyone's seen, but this week 159 has gone into pilot in the UK. So 159 is now the new Stop Scams. The country's got a huge problem with fraud and stop scams and everything coming through. So 159 has gone live, and it went live yesterday. So, me being me, I decided to test it out to see what it was all about. So it's all promoted as this is where you're going to report your fraud and get some action done. It's fantastic. Big new committee at government level, etc. And what is 159? As far as the best I can see, it's an IVR. And it's backed by Barclays, BT, all of the big banks, all of the big telcos, providers. And all we've done is we've plugged in a big IVR very badly that took me 8 minutes yesterday to reach a human being to complain about something at a bank level on fraud. We are about to, if that goes live, we are about to re-educate the public that we can do things badly. We should be re-educating people that we do things well. And the more companies that do things well, the better it will be better received, and the more consumer will embrace going forward the use of tech. We've got to be able to champion things and make sure that we get good things happening in our country where it's interacting with the consumer so we can all benefit.
But do we think that the clients are coming to us with an open mind about design and so forth? Because we've approached IVR in a very structured, uncreative way. Should we be more creative? Are clients open-minded? Is there a role for the outsourcer to add that open-mindedness about deploying these types of technology? Chris, help us with that one.
Well, I think it comes to the fact that for businesses to do this really well, they need to partner with experts in their space, in their industry. You know, historically, I guess customer service, when we think about the technologies to support it, so ultimately our underlying, call system, ticketing system, they're kind of staples inside an organization. So one from the other is not going to make a dramatic difference on kind of business, on how consumers are treated. Whereas this is adding like another layer of complexity, which can go really wrong or really well. Yeah. And I think, how do you make sure that you're sitting in the really well space? Well, you partner with an expert, and if CPOs can position themselves as experts, well, ultimately they need to partner with the right vendors in the background. Then it should build their credibility with their customers, give them something else in their portfolio that their competitors won't have, and ultimately, again, to go back to my earlier point, will allow them to win. But ultimately, this is more sophisticated than just implementing a core system. So you really need to partner with experts in your industry. And I think industry is an important point here. We've learned that a lot. DigitalGenius has been around for 7 years. We tried to service customers across all different industries. Some things went really well, some things went really badly, and ultimately it was quite time intensive to get things going really well. We've kind of pivoted in the last few years to focus in on one industry. And actually, it's made us really confident that things always go really well. And I think, businesses and BPO should take something away from this to say that ultimately in this space, experts in an industry can make a real big difference.
Nathan, your response to that? Are clients coming with an open mind, and do we need to educate the clients, and how do we help the outsourcers educate the clients so we get a better result?
I would say that the clients that we work with come with a really open mind, and even if they have a developed brief, of course, they're looking for partners, hopefully experts in that space, to be able to contribute, to the brief, and that should never stop. That should never stop. We talked about the industry in flux at the moment. It's changing at a rapid pace. What we're able to achieve is becoming more ambitious, in this space. And a lot of it's being driven by users, because everybody is. What I've noticed is that once upon a time, people used to compare people within their own industry. Like, this e-commerce company is good at customer service, and I think they're just the bars being risen across every sector, because people are, and I'm not describing my life here, but people want answers fast, sat on the settee at 9 o'clock at night watching Netflix while they're on the phone. Yeah. And they're having good experiences at being able to do that, and they're having bad experiences, but it's raising the bar for everybody. And that pushes pressure onto the likes of ourselves, who design chat experiences and bots and whatever across many platforms. But it also encourages clients to be far more ambitious with the briefs of what they want to achieve. Yeah. Let's
stick to that. What people want to achieve. Let's get down to some numbers, right? And I'm going to point to you, Chris, and you, Nathan.
Yeah.
Come up with some numbers for us. I've got an audience question. Can you give some use cases or case studies for omni-channel conversation success criteria? So, what are our retention rates in these conversations?
Yeah.
How many have been passed through to agents, and what sort of percentage is that looking like, and what does the agent get presented with typically? Chris, give us a start on that.
Yeah, I get, and this is kind of always the difficult piece. Ultimately, I guess there's three key metrics when you're looking at the performance of kind of your automations. So one is, how many automations can they do? That's kind of the simple one, right? How many out of all your incoming volume, how many can they automate? The second one is resolutions, right? Because that's quite an easy metric for most businesses to track, where say how many of those are actually being resolved. often kind of mirrors your first resolution rate, because it would be the same number as, you know, if one of your team was responding on the first go. Typically, we see probably 3/4. You know, you hope on 3, and probably in all customer service interactions, probably 75% can be resolved on the first interaction by the bot. And then the last one is obviously CSAT and NPS. Well, not the last one. Again, something that should be tracked inside a window, right? Again, something which is relatively easy to be able to be tracked inside a chatbot conversation. And the final one, things like retention and conversion rates, that's a bit more difficult, because I think you need data over quite a long period of time to really be able to get a really good idea. And to be honest, even for us with our customers, you know, those first 3 metrics we can look at and are very important to a project. The last metric is more difficult. There are plenty of things online which say, you know, if you use live chat, you know, you can convert 75% more customers, but I'm always a bit suspicious with those big numbers that people throw out, if that's actually true. I think I would like to see that in our own data to be able to get a credible answer there.
But give us some indicative. If you're talking to a client, we're automating a process, let's say it's returns in e-commerce, right? We're going to automate that. Where would you set expectation for your definition of success, let's call it?
Yeah, so we look at the two. So automation, as I said before, typically would like to get to at least 1/3 after a few months. For some customers, 1/2. And for those, you know, we would hope to be able to resolve probably about 75% of those. Perfect. So for the kind of the 25%, they would then just be handed off to a human to take over. And that's just that human handoff piece is one of the most critical pieces, to be honest, to get the whole circle going really well. And that's ultimately in how you set the solution up. You want, if a bot conversation breaks down, ideally you want a human agent to be able to take over immediately. It's not always possible, because if your agents are not 24/7, but if they're assuming you have agents at their desk working, you want to be sure that you can prioritize that conversation, so that's the one gets picked up immediately. So ultimately that handoff experience that the customer is experiencing is very seamless. I think that's probably one of the critical things to get right to make sure it works.
And I'm just going to stick with you for a second. And you talked about retail, but have you done that for banks? Would it be different for a bank? Any different? Why would a bank be different from an e-commerce company, for example?
I don't think it would be too different. I think just probably the complexity of the number of processes would be a little bit more. In e-commerce, you can probably say out of top 10 use cases cover 50% for most businesses. I think for banks, they're a little bit more complex, especially banks that sell multiple products and services. So it might be that it's not 10, it's 100. When it comes to building out 100, it is a bit more difficult than building out 10. So I think it just, in those side organizations, you might need teams to do this yourselves. Whereas if you've just got 10, it's probably pretty easier to partner to deliver a really good solution.
Got it. Nathan, give us some numbers.
I'll give you a real live case that's this week. We've got an automotive client who we're currently working with across the board, a big piece of work across the sort of Facebook platform, Instagram, Messenger, WhatsApp and whatever, and also sort of web-based. They want to reduce, this is the brief, to reduce 30 people out of their concierge team, okay, to be replaced by bots over the next 2 months. I don't know what someone in a concierge team earns, right? But I know those jobs are gone. Yeah. I've got endless cases like this, and endless cases like this. Recently just done a job for a massive blue collar recruitment company where they've got rid of a similar sort of number of resources, people who ring up candidates and say, hi, have you sent your CV in for this blue collar job in a warehouse, you know, asking them questions that aren't relevant. The processes are usually sort of clunky, have never been looked at. It's not adding it's not where humans are adding value. That humans are not adding value. Maybe those people go on and do a much more valuable job within those businesses, but what they won't be doing is that job much longer.
Natalie,
you know?
come in on the value point and the EX angle for us.
Yeah, so your 30 heads roughly is around about £1 million worth of costs that business is looking to take out, including all the costs and management all combined, all right? So deploying people will be a choice of where it gets deployed, and the cost of it is needing to be very carefully thought through by organizations now. And where COVID and the economic climate is just demanding, take heads out, take them off, not just off balance sheet, but just take them out. We need to remove it. The bots will replace it. So where we put our value is in our people. But I would come back, and Chris, you said very clearly there around the handoffs. I was looking at a scope brief 2 weeks ago, and the whole architecture was laid out, and everywhere it went to a human being, it just said handoff, handoff, handoff. And nowhere in any of the documentation or conversations was what's going to happen on that handoff when it's been handed off. How's that going to be bridged across? What's the new conversation? What's the emotion? What's the tone? What's the complexity? All of those issues. And unless organizations start to think that through, they're going to have a whole raft of knock-on, we call it, don't we, repeat work, consequential work, that's going to be happening. I think also we'll see difference is in terms of wait times, resolution times, reductions in complaints as well. But again, human beings deployed to handle those complaints.
Got it. JB, we've got a few minutes left. Let's have a look at the poll results.
Okay, let's have a look. So I think we actually, Chris answered one of the polls, just the second poll. So we have a look at the third poll. I'll just share through the results now. So this was the one which asked the question, what subject matter or process flows do you think a bot or virtual assistant would best support? And please rank in order. Can you see those?
Yeah. Yeah. So any comments there, team?
What's missing there is the post-sale stuff, isn't it? It's the more complex stuff. By its nature, it should be pretty simple, that stuff. Maybe the pre-sales information requests are more specific. But it's, again, you're saying the post-sales environment is where service is, and therefore you see the role of service, the role of the human, suddenly having to upsell and cross-sell and do the more complex stuff. But this will become the routines that will just now get automated, I think.
Got it. Yeah.
Okay. And then poll 4.
Yeah, that same. Let's have a look at poll 4, which looks at the opposite side. What shouldn't you be automating? Again, where are humans going to take a part? What says that to me? I'm surprised pre-sales and existing order, you know, where's my order? You know, is pretty simple stuff, isn't it? Pretty repetitive for an agent to answer. Yeah. Natalie, human beings in a contact center are challenging to manage. It's hard to do it really well. But what can we use bots for to make that agent, that advisor experience, the human experience, more valuable, so that we get better engagement, better retention, a better result for our customers? What should we be doing?
So one of the gaps that I think hybrid working has really identified is knowledge management. You know, the age of being able to put your hand up and ask a question and can you help me with this has gone, as I'm sitting at my kitchen table trying to handle this customer. So I think the role for AI, for machine learning around bots, for providing good knowledge management to the front line is really important. Not only will it give a better customer experience because the information will be right rather than guesswork, but it will also be faster, and it will also prevent escalations. So I think, and that will also ultimately take the stress out of the situation. Yeah. You know, everyone's talking about well-being, and there's a lot of noise around the fact that the stress in the contact center has now come into the heart of the home and those types of things. But I think if we can get the point of the process and the knowledge management right, and if I'm going to add one thing, it's interesting, isn't it? We're all talking front end. There's a lot of back end processes that are still going on in the back office that are totally now disjointed from what's happening at the front end customer interaction. And I think bots can play a role there as well.
Super. I think that virtually ends our session, but summarizes it perfectly. Thank you, panel. You know, this is a front end thing, but it's also for customers and that customer engagement process, but it's also a back end thing to support our frontline troops and help produce a better result for our clients and clients' customers. JB, over to you to close.
Yes, yes. So thank you, John, and thank you to the panelists. It's a very, very interesting debate. We've actually recorded this session, so we're going to send out the recording through to anybody who's actually attended and those who have not been able to make it. If you want to push it on to any of your colleagues, please do that. We've got some excellent supporting material as well, so we'll make sure you've got links through to that so you can have a look at information there. If you have any questions or you want to have a chat at all, anybody from the panel or from Contact Centre panel, please get in touch. Please feel free to get in touch. We'll happily assist where necessary. That's it. Have a great day, everyone, and thank you.
Thank you very much.
Thank you,
Thank
panel.
you.
Thanks,
Thank
everyone.
you, guys.
Thank
Bye-bye.
you. Bye.
Bye now.